This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am reunited with someone I did one of my very first interviews with, Tony Parkinson, who's joining us all the way from the McLaren Vale. How are you today, sir?
Well, Jamie, I'm brilliant. Yeah, good to see you again, mate.
Great to see you. Now, please tell me a little about what has been happening since we last met, the evolution of your wines and your wine company.
Well, yeah, we last met in 2012, I think, and so soon after that we restructured our business, and in that process we discovered a new winemaker by the name of Alexia Roberts, and I have to say her influence on the wines has been noticeable. She has that feminine touch that I think is becoming more and more important to winemaking. She, for example, picks very much on flavour. She's very, very competent at managing the processes, both logistic and viticultural, and obviously winemaking. And I'm marvelling at her practices. For example, her matching of oak to appropriate oak to the varietals has been a real feature of what we're doing. So we always had good wines, but I think we've progressively evolved them and stepped them up with Alexia, who's now been responsible for the last 4 vintages from 14 onwards.
And you said that she wears many hats at the winery.
Yeah. She's multitasked.
Right.
So strong on, obviously strong on viticultural management and winemaking, but good grasp of cost of goods and packaging and marketing, of course, and is someone who we're very happy to send out into the marketplace. She's got that nice blend of technological understanding, but can also communicate in lay terms very effectively. So yeah, that's been a big change in our business, really.
How has your company morphed, evolved to keep pace with the changes in the Australian wine market?
Well, interesting question. We are facing globally more and more competition, as I think anyone in this industry knows. And what that essentially does is force you to redefine the channels into which you're marketing. So just for a couple of examples, we are now putting a lot of emphasis back into direct marketing to our original consumers, the one-on-one private enthusiasts for the brands, to the point where we've, for example, got girls within the business talking on the telephone to customers. We are expanding the offer at our base, our cellar door base, which includes a gin bar. So it's another reason to attract people to the destination and obviously sell them wine, engage them in wine. And I guess we're reviewing the channels into which we market. So under increasing competition, some of those have become unsustainable. But I have to say Canada for us is a sensational market. It's our number one export market. And we're finding that the appetite for our wines in Canada is still very, very strong, east to west. So yeah, that's a good sign, and that's really why I'm here.
And what do you put that strength in the Canadian market down to?
Well, Canadians are just lovely people who appreciate wine, aren't they?
You have to say that when you're here.
I do. No, I genuinely mean it. I think the cultures of Canada and Australia are not dissimilar.
Right.
We have some roots in common, be it the British Empire origins. You guys, of course, have a French component. We have very little of that, although in South Australia there was some French exploration. But Canada's also quite a sophisticated wine market, and I think the Australian palate has, the Australian offer has found favour with the Canadian palate generally. So long may that stay.
And how do you find dealing with some of these liquor control bodies throughout Canada?
Oh, well, it's a very interesting proposition because I think the industry sometimes per se views the government instrumentalities as roadblocks. I have a bit of a different view. I think that is a structure that's been there a long time, and I think generally, whilst some of the initiatives are hard to understand, at the end of the day, that system tends to protect the true performers. It does bring the Canadian consumer a variety of options and offers. So I don't think it's a bad thing. And really the strength of it for a business is at the end of the day, we know we're going to get paid.
Always a good thing at the end
Always
of the day.
a good thing.
How have you seen the Australian wine market change since the last time we spoke? Have you felt it has softened in some markets?
Yeah, I think right at the moment there's emphasis on perhaps varietals and trends that weren't there when we last spoke. I was talking to a prominent retailer in Adelaide the other day, and he highlighted the fact that sparkling everything is of interest at the moment.
Right.
Grenache is on the radar.
I like that.
Yeah, we produce a very small amount, unfortunately. We'd like to have more acres. Pinot Grigio and Pinot Noir are also styles that are gaining new interest, and Rosé is flavour of the month at the moment, although none of us knows exactly how that will sustain. But it's interesting, out of those five, we're not talking necessarily about Shiraz, Cabernet or the mainstream whites. They're still there, of course. I think the Australian market, well, it's dominated by a handful of producers, and our retail is dominated by two main players, so hugely competitive. And I think at the end of the day, that's a challenge where most of the smaller producers are rethinking their businesses, recalibrating, consolidating. But it's an exciting industry to be in, and it beats having a job, put it that way. So we are facing the fact that wine is more readily available. It's more of a commodity than it was before. But at the end of the day, what the discerning consumer wants is quality with a story, with authenticity, and I think we have that still.
Going back to your region, McLaren Vale, how have you seen climate change affect what's going on down there?
Well, for example, we're now at the end of May 2019. Until about 3 weeks ago, we'd had less than 1 inch of rain in this calendar year.
Less than 1 inch?
Less than 1 inch. Our normal rainfall expectation is 25 inches a year for the region, so that gives you an idea of how dry it's been. We have had now some rain, and the troops back home tell me that it's still raining, so that's a good sign. But another impact was our crop, our 2019 vintage, which in Australia is roughly end of February through to beginning of April. Much smaller in our case than any previous crop, and I think that's across the board. And it's an underlying drought-related issue, really. And we also had perhaps not the ideal set back in 2018. So, yeah, combination of factors, but very, very dry, and that's the first observation with changing climate.
You were mentioning you had some quite severe heat waves also.
Yeah. We also reached 47 degrees C, the highest temperature since recording began. And the heat waves are telling on the vines, because basically what happens is the vines don't cool down overnight, and so the activity within the berry is, I guess, frenzy, and it makes it much harder to pick at the right time and to keep sugar content under control and so on.
How does that affect the flavour profile in the berries?
Well, I think primarily it's, in our case, we've perhaps had to make picking decisions that would be a little ahead of time, and therefore the winemaker is challenged to deliver in the end. But no, the quality and flavour has not been too badly affected. It's mainly the actual quantum.
The yields have
been,
the
yields, yeah.
Well, it's fantastic to see you again, and to be able to catch up and hear what's been happening in your world. Thank you so much for your time today.
Pleasure, James. Thank you, James.
Hopefully it won't be another... How many years?
Oh, well. We'll make it sooner next time.
I hope so.
More frequent.
Thanks so much. Bye for now.
Pleasure.